Howdy everybody, we're doing polynomials today. Some very basic stuff, so some vocabulary, lots of examples, and then you'll have some time to practice. And again, this is much like anytime we start a new major idea in math. A lot of this stuff's going to be key because this is going to be all the words that you're going to be hearing in terms of directions, etc. So, essential question for today, how do I identify and name types of polynomials? You should have a note sheet in front of you. If not, you can put this up across the top. Reminder, pause wherever you need to, and then we can go from there. So if I'm going too fast or you need to rewind, make sure you do that. So a couple of definitions here. A monomial. Well, first of all, let's do this. See, I've already gone off the rails. Polynomial. If you look back at your English, this is basically made up of two things. First, this suffix right here, excuse me, prefix right here, poly. If you know what that is, say it. Hey, I heard some of you say it. Yeah, poly means many. So like, polytheistic, you may have heard in geography, theistic, many gods or multiple gods. Okay. That type of thing. So you've got that. Nomial right here, IAL usually means to be like something. Nomial right here basically means parts. And so when we talk about what a polynomial is many parts. And so we're going to talk about specific types of polynomials and how they come up with their names. But again, when you see this, there's going to be a lot of things that you probably already know in here. So, for example, if I come over here and we talk about a monomial, monotheistic meaning one, single. So a monomial is an expression with one term. That's all. Ooh, definition of polynomial, already broke it up. So an expression with multiple terms. One variable, there's no negative exponents. So for example, monomial might be 4x squared. One term. And they're going to be separated, should be separated by adding or subtracting. So one variable, no negative exponents. So for example, 3x squared minus 7x plus 9. Technically, remember now, even though 9 doesn't have a variable, quote unquote, technically it has x to the 0 there, because x to the 0 is 1. But since mathematicians like to help teenagers be lazy, we don't write it down. Binomials and trinomials you're going to hear a lot of. Binomials meaning two, like a bicycle. Trinomials is going to be like three, like a tricycle. So, formal definition, an expression with two terms. And again, remember, it doesn't have to be x. Most of what we'll be dealing with will be x, but for example, I could have 2a to the 4th plus 9a. That's a binomial. I have two parts. They're separated by, in this case, an adding sign. Again, either adding or subtracting is fine. Just because subtracting, you can always rewrite as adding the opposite. So trinomial, three parts. So another example here, negative 4 y to the 3rd plus 9y squared minus 7. That would be a trinomial. These are kind of like, I guess the best way to say it, and we'll do this more after we get everything pulled together, it's kind of like you're classifying somebody's name. Okay, you can kind of tell some things about people. You can go like, hey, those two people might be related because they have the same last name. All right, so again, pause where you need to. I'm just going to keep going. So a couple of examples here. So type of polynomial is a monomial. So again, remember this is going to be one term. You don't necessarily have to write this out as a table. This is just to keep me honest. So an example would be 3a, 7x squared. Those would be examples. Binomial, two terms. So 4x squared minus 3, 2y minus 7. I'll make it plus 7, so we got one of each. For trinomial, three terms. So 4a squared minus 7a plus 6 would be an example. For a polynomial, this is usually used for if you have more than three terms. Now again, I mean technically these are specific polynomials. Okay. So polynomial is oops. But usually you'll say, oh, I've got a four-term. So for example, you might hear four-term polynomial. And you just have four terms in it because, you know, otherwise you're talking about quadrinomial or quintinomial or quartinomial, and just it gets all really, you know, crazy. Now, things that are not polynomials are things with negative exponents, or divided by exponents, which is basically the same thing like we talked about. So you might get something, for example, 7x to the squared minus 3x plus 2x to the negative first. Not a polynomial. You might get 4 over x squared minus 3 over x plus 2. Those are not polynomials. Okay? Quick little review here. What is the name of a monomial that is a number alone? So let's say if I just have the number 6 or negative 12 or something like that. That is called a constant. There is no variable, so it is a constant. So, a little visual here for you. Sure, there we go. Come on. So, let's say these are all my polynomials. So this is kind of like one big category. I spelled that totally wrong. This is where somebody who was on YouTube full time would edit this part out and start over. You see that little glitch, but you're going to see all my lumps as we go. All right, so polynomial is kind of like the big group. And it's the same thing as saying, okay, what are different types of polynomials? So you might say like monomial here. You might have binomial. You might have trinomial. That's going to be hard to write. And then there's all the different ones. So notice there's not really any overlap between these different styles here, right? There's not, this isn't the same, this isn't the same, this isn't the same. You also might have like, you know, 4 terms out here, etc. It's the same idea. Let's say if you did this. Think about the apps on your phone. Okay, so you have all these different things. There's just this general category of apps on your phone. So you might have Snapchat over here. You'll have Instagram over here. You might have, pick your favorite, the Castle Defense game that I never remember the name of. You might have your, you know, Netflix on here because, you know, you have one of those plans that'll pay for it and all that other good stuff. You know, whatever. But it's the same idea. So you've got all these different apps. They're related to each other. They might even talk to each other because, you know, I know that you can, oops, wrong one. You know, your photo one is going to go into Instagram. and then your Instagram might post onto Twitter, whatever. But there's still separate apps that are, yeah, they're separate apps. All separate names are all underneath apps, just like monomial, binomial, trinomial, all different types of polynomials, all underneath the same umbrella. Couple more definitions, just so you can remember. Coefficient. This you should know. These are the numbers out in front of the variables. So for example, that looks a little weird there. So it's the number that is multiplied by one or many variables. So for example, here, if I had 5x, 5 is the coefficient. For the degree of a term, you're saying, okay, the exponent of the term is the degree. So for example, if I have 3x squared, this right here, my degree equals 2 for this term. If it was a 9, it'd be degree 9. If it was a 1, it'd be degree 1. If it was 0, it'd be degree 0. Okay? It's also part of the reason why you can't have negative exponents. It just makes that all messy. Degree of a polynomial. Now this is going to get a little bit more involved. Not lots. So what you're going to do is that you take the highest degree when looking at all of the terms. So for example, if I had, let me change colors so it doesn't blend in, 4x to the 4th plus 3x squared plus 2x minus 7. This is degree 4. This has degree 2. This has that phantom 1 up there, right? This has no variable because remember technically it's x to the 0, so that's going to be degree equal to 0. So since this is the biggest one, the degree of this whole polynomial is going to be degree 4. Now before you say it, some of you are going to be thinking, but Mr. Hayes, what happens? You know what? I'm not going to erase it. I'm just going to start a new page. My apologies. But isn't so just the first one, right? It's just whatever that degree on the front part is. No, because you know you're going to find something like this. You're going to see 3x to the 3rd plus 7x squared plus 10x to the 9th plus 3x minus 10. Okay? So again, if you say, oh, this is degree 3 because that's the number out front, no. Stop it. Stop circling that. Look, I've got degree 3, degree 2, degree... Oh, somebody didn't put this order. This is degree 9. So that means the polynomial is degree 9. Now we're going to talk about etiquette here in a little bit. A good mathematician, good math student, good math teacher will generally, final answer, put everything in order from the highest degree to the lowest degree. So you'll look at the highest exponent, the next highest, etc. But that's not always going to happen. So you can't just rely on somebody else doing the work for you. Your mom does not work here. Or your dad, I suppose. So anyway, a couple of specific names, much like how we have the trinomial and the binomial and the monomial. We have a cubic equation. A cubic equation, if you have something of degree 3, is going to be cubic. So if I say, oh, we have a cubic equation, that would be for, and it can be of any size. I could say like a negative 3x to the 3rd minus 7. I could also just go 4x to the 3rd, or I could even have something like, 7x, a negative 7x to the 3rd plus 4x squared minus 2x plus 10. Okay, so notice, I've got a binomial here, that's 3rd degree. I have a monomial here, that's 3rd degree. I have a 4-term polynomial there, and that's still 3rd degree. So the degree just tells you how big the exponent is and doesn't tell you how big the size is. Quadratic. Now, everybody thinks, ooh, quadratic, quad for, just came out of the Olympics, you do a quadruple, the triple quad or something, or anything four. No, that's a little different. It means you have a second degree polynomial. I know, don't yell at me. Just one of those things. So as an example here, again, you could have a single monomial that's quadratic, or I could have a binomial that was quadratic. That's an ugly 7. So 5x squared minus 7x plus 10. Or you could even, that can be trinomial, right? 3 terms. Or I could even do like something, binomial. Maybe you just have like 3x squared minus 2. And then a linear is a special name for degree, and we already know this. It's first degree polynomial. We've done linear equations since the beginning there. 3x minus 5. That's a y, Mr. Hayes, I know. 3x minus 5. Hey, that's linear. 2x. Hey, that's linear. But notice the degree is 1. I know. You're excited. So let's start putting some of the stuff all together. Now, when you're naming your polynomials, basically there's a first name and there's a last name. And the first name has to do with the degree. The last name has to do with the number of terms. So example, you might get a quadratic binomial. What does this tell you? The name means that I have a second degree with 2 terms. Zoom out here a touch. You might have a linear binomial. Let's see here. So before I do that, so as an example, quadratic means it's going to be of degree 2. So I'm going to say, all right, that's going to be 4x squared minus 3x. Notice I have up here second degree, so that means that's taking care of the quadratic part, and I've got 1, 2 terms. So second degree, 2 terms, quadratic binomial. And in some ways, and some of you might be saying, well, why don't we just say that? Well, it's kind of like your name. Your name means certain things. If your name is Caleb, that used to be meaning at some point the word strong in Hebrew. Okay? So it's one of those things where it's kind of shifted and evolved, so that's just what you do. Anyway, so let's say if I had a linear monomial. Now let's say binomial here too. Okay. So linear, meaning first degree. With 2 terms. So you're like, oh, I could do that. So the highest degree is 1, so maybe I'll say like negative 3x. But I need 2 terms, so that means I have to go lower than that, so like minus 7. They could say something like a cubic trinomial. So that means degree 3 with 3 terms. So, whatever you want. 7x to the third minus 7x plus 10. Or I could do, 8x to the third plus 2x squared plus 19x. You also have like a cubic monomial. So that would just be like a 17x to the third. Done. Cubic is degree, so the cubic is going here. The monomial is how many terms? Last little thing. We can do some work. Polynomial grammar. Decreasing order. Writing terms in order from degree from greatest to smallest. Okay? So, you're always going to do this in greatest order. So, like, for example, example of something good would be this. 7x to the fourth minus 3x cubed plus 11x squared minus 2x plus 3. Okay? That's good. Notice. Goes bigger to smaller. I've got my fourth degree here. I've got a third degree here. I've got my second. I've got my first. And I got 0. You can skip those. That's fine. You don't have to have one of everything. But what we don't want is this. An example of something that would be bad. Same numbers, but let's say I wrote down 11x squared minus 3x to the third minus 2x plus 7x to the fourth plus 3. Notice, I'm going, here's my second degree, then I go to my third, and then I go to the first, and then I go to the... No. You don't do that. No. Civilized people do not talk like that. Let alone people who know how to talk about math. I know. I'm not gonna, here's the thing. Even if you don't think you're going to talk about math, you're going to talk about something that's important to your career. And you need to sound intelligent about it. So get practicing now. Now this phrase standard form down here, whenever you see standard form, that means you have a polynomial written in decreasing order. So when you read this, so if you read this, do this. Why do they call it standard form? Standard means it's the thing that everybody does. If there's a standard of care, it's what everybody expects to have happen. So standard form, people are going to expect that you're going to write the polynomial in order from biggest to smallest. Just do it. No savages in my math class. Smiley face. Okay. So you're going to have a little bit of time to do homework. Homework's going to be a lot of just kind of checking things out. So for example here, determine if each expression is a monomial, binomial, trinomial, or not a polynomial. So real quick example here. This right here, I've got two terms. Now remember, for it to not be a polynomial, you can't be dividing by fractions or have negative fractions. So right here, this is going to be a binomial. Two terms. Number 3, however, is not a polynomial. Why? Dividing by x. Okay? So that should get you a good start on that. And tomorrow, we're going to up the game a bit. I know I can tell you're excited. Okay? Come back tomorrow. We'll see you then.